Hello, Eason here, and welcome back to Movie Friday, where I talk about movies that you might want to watch or avoid for your Friday nights, your Saturday evenings, or just over your weekend in general. This week, I will be talking about the critically acclaimed feature-length debut of a director who has, until this point, dabbled only in short films, despite having a few writing credits to his name. The movie that I am talking about is Liam Gavin's A Dark Song. A Dark Song is about a grieving mother, Sophie, played by Catherine Walker, who contacts a shaman/mage, Joseph Solomon, played by Steve Oram, in order to perform an extremely lengthy and extremely demanding and dangerous ritual in order to contact her deceased son. The ritual in question is called the Abramelin ritual. Now, the end goal of the Abramelin ritual as it is presented in the movie is to contact Sophie's guardian angel. It is said that if she manages to get through it, she will be able to make a single wish from it, which it has to grant. And those of you who are better versed in matters of the occult than I am will no doubt recognize the name Abramelin and remember the Abramelin operation. The same lengthy, demanding, and dangerous ritual that famous occultist, the one and only Aleister Crowley, purchased the Boleskine house for. Even more famously, Crowley is said to have not only started the ritual, but abandoned it halfway before leaving Boleskine house, leading to the place becoming a sort of central point for evil in the area. The Abramelin ritual on average takes at least 6 months to complete, which does not include the months of preparation that one needs to undertake beforehand. And another thing about it is that if you were to start this operation, you cannot stop until you finish it, one way or the other. This is the main reason why the Boleskine house is so infamously evil as it is now, because Crowley didn't finish his. And it is actually a point in practical magic that if you are starting something, you better make goddamn sure that you finish it. In order to ensure that they are absolutely focused, Joseph Solomon surrounds the house with a salt circle, locks them in, and tells Sophie in explicit terms that she will not be able to leave the house or stop the ritual until everything is complete. What follows after that is basically like an extended montage of Sophie going through the extremely demanding and at times quite painful stages of this lengthy ritual. In fact, more often than not, you are treated to shots of Sophie enduring what she must do on any particular day with a very serious, very solemn Joseph Solomon sort of looming over her, clad in robes and overseeing her progress. Now, up until this point, A Dark Song appears to be your typical dangerous occult ritual going horribly wrong type of horror movie, and that would have been a fair assessment if A Dark Song was indeed just a horror movie. If you are expecting a type of movie where an attempted occult ritual goes horribly wrong in stages with lots of jump scares and sort of fake outs and CGI demons crawling out of the woodwork, you can just abandon those thoughts right now. Despite being advertised as such, A Dark Song is more of a drama with supernatural horror elements thrown in than a straight up horror movie. In fact, I would go so far as to say that A Dark Song isn't a straight up any movie. You are not meant to be scared of what is going on, you are meant to endure what is going on with Sophie. Much in the same way that Martyrs, the movie I covered last week, attempted to drag the audience through the experiences, the pain that its protagonist was experiencing, A Dark Song puts you in the emotional headspace of Sophie. Her sheer determination to make it to the end of it gives her the air of being at the very end of her rope, or at least enough to resort to this extremely dangerous and extremely unconventional method of coping with her grief. I think Catherine Walker does an exceptional job portraying Sophie as this broken down woman, almost completely bereft of joy, doing the only thing that she knows how to. And she sort of plays off very well with Steve Orum's Joseph Solomon, who comes across as this world-weary, extremely experienced, but deeply cynical and almost perpetually disgruntled little mage. I mean, seriously, Joseph Solomon communicates more in condescending, snide remarks and sort of sarcastic comebacks than he does in actual human sentences. The characters' dynamic with each other is quite different when they're interacting socially than when they're interacting within the confines of the ritual. When performing rites, Solomon is the overseer and Sophie is the adept. When they are just eating or having a smoke, they are more on equal ground, and so they approach each other as strangers would. Now, one thing that A Dark Song does not succumb to is the temptation to create this sort of explosive, tension-laden conflict between its characters who are trapped in this one place. It does not go down what I now call the lighthouse route of creating this cabin fever-like explosive anger in these characters toward each other, because they both know that they must be dedicated to the task ahead. Speaking of which, let's get into how the supernatural elements, especially those belonging to the ritual, are presented in this movie. The setting plays into the ritualistic aspects of the movie really well. Most of the movie takes place in a large mansion that is seemingly abandoned, and it has been quite a while since it has been cleaned. And parts where the ritual are taking place are just basically empty rooms with chalk outlines of occult symbols and summoning circles drawn everywhere, sometimes stretching from one room to the next. Despite what the setting is and the fact that the two characters are basically locked into this setting, it never feels shut in, isolated, or claustrophobic in a sense. Mainly because the focus of the movie isn't to depress you with its setting, but more to help you relate to Sophie's anguish, which I'm going to get to in about a second. As for the elements of the rituals goes, oddly enough, A Dark Song seems to have been written from the perspective of a skeptic rather than a believer. Rather than being treated to the chalk-drawn occult symbols glowing with light, or demons coming out of the woodwork, or the house shifting on the outside where they are doing what they are doing, you are instead treated to nothing but silence and four walls. Of course, this is not the only thing that you see. There are quite a few instances where the ritual is revealed to be working, but those types of instances are not your in-your-face, CGI-laden, larger-than-life type scenes. They are quite low-key, they are played down, and although their impact registers, and it registers wonderfully, they are not these over-the-top expressions of the supernatural. This also helps the movie gain an undertone of dread rather than being laden with it throughout, in that you know that there are things that must be going on as per the ritual that you as the audience cannot see, mainly because you are anchored to the viewpoint of your protagonist, Sophie. As a result, you can't really shake the feeling that there's more going on underneath the surface of everything. And when supernatural stuff occurs more overtly, you don't really get surprised in the "oh my god, I can't believe this happened" kind of way. You get more like, aha, I knew there was something going on. One thing that A Dark Song manages to do with this undertone of creeping dread is to slowly ramp it up throughout the movie as the ritual continues. Which is actually a good thing, because about 3/4 of this movie is basically Sophie and Solomon performing various rites required to complete the ritual. Despite this, A Dark Song is an extremely well-flowing and extremely gripping movie that at no point feels boring. The artful renditions of occult shit going down never outstay their welcome. Quiet scenes or scenes of mundane dialogue between Sophie and Solomon never linger on for too long, and the movie even treats you to a few ongoing thrills. This is an occult ritual, which means Sophie and Solomon are basically fucking with forces that are far beyond their understanding or ability to control. In fact, Solomon's warnings at the beginning of the movie are to explicitly make both Sophie and the audience know that this ritual is not to be fucked with, because the forces that they're going to be invoking are hugely powerful, the type that you really don't want to cross or invoke in the wrong way. Even though there are overt horror elements also present, which I cannot talk about. Okay, you know what? Skip to this point in the video if you do not want to get spoiled, and I suggest you don't. Alright, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Now, the main horror comes from the fact that Sophie keeps having conversations with her son when she lays herself down to sleep, at least after a while. This becomes extremely creepy, given that you are never sure if it is her son on the other side of the door or something else, because Solomon explicitly warns Sophie against letting anything into her room, especially if that thing sounds like her son. That, coupled with the fact that the ritual goes to shit because of Sophie's mistakes and the entire mansion just sort of succumbs to evil by the end of the movie in much the same way that the Boleskine house is rumored to be, creates a more malleable and a far stronger sense of dread than it would have if the whole movie was like that. You see, by just confining the more overt horror elements to the third act of the movie and a recurrent element throughout, A Dark Song manages to create a far more powerful impact of horror when it finally brings you the goods. Spoilers end here, so if you think that the movie is going a bit slow at the beginning, I'm gonna say just keep with it, because it is going to be taking you in no time at all. Again, one word that I love when it comes to movies: immersive. It isn't just that the setting lends itself to being accessible to the audience, which pulls you in. It is also that Sophie was written more or less to be an audience surrogate. She seems to carry the explicit intention of locking the audience into a perspective, which the movie does almost effortlessly, so you will find yourself drawn both to her and to what is going on in no time at all. The central theme that holds A Dark Song together and drives this plot forward is grief, but grief in this movie isn't presented in an overt, all-encompassing passion as in Midsommar or The Babadook. If anything, grief as a theme reverberates throughout the movie as the undertone that just runs under everything, as it is with the more supernatural elements. Even though what drives Sophie to attempt this dangerous ritual is grief over the death of her son, her grief is present but not visible, which is sort of the way that things go in this movie. Which, if you think about it, is kind of how the supernatural go in the world, so kudos in that little bit of unexpected realism. So, with all that said, do I recommend that you watch this movie? Yes, I absolutely fucking do. It is a well-written, well-shot, well-acted movie with an extremely fluid plot. It goes by in no time at all. The supernatural elements and the horror elements are blended perfectly with the more drama-laden side of it. It is quite evocative in terms of emotions. It is immersive as all hell, and it is an absolute joy to watch. It isn't, however, the type of movie that is going to satisfy you if you are the type of horror fan who is in it for the thrills and would like your horror to be more in your face, because, like I said, while horror is there, it is present, but mostly not visible. Barring that, I don't see any reason why anyone shouldn't be enjoying this movie, so I would say give it a go. In preparing for this video, I thought that maybe I should be reading more Crowley as well, so I think I'm just gonna get on that. Until next time, hope you have a wonderful weekend. This is Eason. Peace out.